The On CloudPulse Next. So 3 pros to like about this shoe is number 1, how lightweight it is. This model is incredibly lightweight for its overall build. It has a wider platform and a more built out structure to it, but it doesn't necessarily have a ton of weight. So if you're big on having a lightweight shoe for training and daily wear and short runs, that's where the CloudPulse Next can make a lot of sense. Number 2 is this shoe I think does a really good job at being that all-in-one style shoe from On for that person who does some general training here and there, but they also want a shoe that they can rock out and about casually and do some short runs in. This model feels a bit less bulky than the CloudPulse and the CloudPulse Pro, and it has a little bit more structure for running purposes and daily wear purposes than the Cloud X4. So it's kind of that more generalist shoe from On that has a slightly wider platform, so if you are into that, I think you will resonate a lot with this shoe. Number 3, this model does have a slightly wider platform up here in the forefoot. Now the upper volume does sit pretty low, but if you have a wider foot and your instep isn't necessarily super high, I think you will like this shoe. It feels a smidge wider than the Cloud X4, for example. It feels about the same as the CloudPulse and the CloudPulse Pro, but if you have been looking for a wider shoe from On and you do have a slightly lower volume foot with the lower instep, that's where the shoe can also make a lot of sense. So it does a really good job as being a generalist for a little bit of everything for that wider footed individual. But now let's talk about a couple of cons that I have with the CloudPulse Next. All right, so 2 cons that I have with this shoe is number 1, the tongue can feel pretty uncomfortable at times. So with this shoe, you have this thin mesh. Anytime you have a tongue like this, it can dig a little bit into the top of the foot. So my advice to anybody who is breaking this shoe in and to just mitigate this entirely is to wear longer socks. So a good pair of crew socks or half ankle crew socks can be a really good bet for weathering this tongue, because once it breaks in, it does soften up, and honestly, it's not as harsh as other models out there like the Born Primitive Savage 1, but it can have a little bit of rub, so you'll definitely want to keep that in mind. And then the second con that I have with this shoe is with the exposed foam here. You're not going to want to necessarily wear this shoe for a ton of outdoor training or for harsh cuts on concrete. That will tear up this shoe, and so while you can do some short runs in it and wear it for daily wear, if you're doing a lot of friction-based activities outdoors, that's going to tear up this outsole, and you're probably going to find that you lack a little bit of grip as well in doing that. Because we don't have a super aggressive rubber tread on this shoe like the CloudPulse Pro, you're going to sacrifice a little bit of grip and protection with this model for that vertical, and that's also why I say this shoe is much more generalist than being a shoe that's a lot more dialed for a specific type of training that runs a little bit further into that intensity spectrum. When it comes to the performance of the On CloudPulse Next, I'll break down how this shoe does for lifting, cross-training, short runs, and daily wear. When it comes to lifting, the shoe does an okay job for light to moderate strength work. So if you're, for example, using machines or free weights, and with your free weights, you're not going past 315 pounds, and for your machines, you're not going crazy heavy on leg press and hack squats, this shoe should do an okay job. The reason I say don't go crazy heavy in this shoe is because your stability will start to get compromised. With this CloudTech midsole here, you do have these holes that go through the forefoot, midfoot, and heel. This is gonna come at the cost of stability. So again, anything that's a little bit heavier with single leg work or deadlifts or squats with free weights, you're gonna notice a little bit of rock with this shoe. And because we do have a fair amount of toe spring, you're not gonna have as much stability when you're trying to ground the toes and grip the floor when you're training. So with this shoe, just keep your training to a light to moderate and you should be okay. You do also have enough grip for most surfaces when it comes to strength work as well, so I wouldn't necessarily stress that in the gym either. When it comes to cross training in this shoe, the shoe does a pretty good job. It is lightweight, it has a decent amount of maneuverability to the forefoot, especially when broken in, and the CloudTech midsole gives you a nice pop. If you're somebody who needs a shoe for some box jumps, jump rope, some general turf work, and then also a class here and there, that's where the shoe can make a lot of sense. You also get a bit of structure back here on the boot and with the arch, so if you like additional support there, that's where the shoe can make a lot of sense. Now, if you're an athlete and you're looking for a shoe with max grip for advanced plyos or for heavier sled work on turf, you'll probably want to pass on this shoe because the outsole tread is not that aggressive. So just food for thought there for my folks out there who are a little bit more serious with their cross-training athletic style training. This model will have a cap, in my opinion, at the intensity in which it's going to feel really good and work for. For short runs, the shoe does an okay job. If you're somebody who needs a shoe for 1 or 2 miles pre or post workout, or for some intervals in a class, or for like a light hybrid session, this model can work. That's where I like them a little bit more than the CloudPulse and the CloudPulse Next. They feel a little bit more like short run friendly for that ask. Would I use this shoe for running 3 to 5 to 7 miles? Probably not. I would definitely get something that's a little bit more dialed for that, so find an actual running shoe. But for short runs, this model does an okay job. And then for daily wear, the shoe also does an okay job. Now, what I would say for daily wear is Try to wear thinner socks and you'll get a little bit more room in the upper volume up here in the forefoot. It'll make it a little bit more comfortable. I start to notice that the toe box feels a little bit snug regarding volume around the 3 to 4 hour mark of wearing these throughout the day. So if you plan to get the shoe and wear them every day, thinner socks can be a godsend for all day wear until they get broken in and you stretch this upper if you're exceeding the width of the shoe. If you have a narrow or medium foot width, you should be plenty fine. But for my wider footed folks, keep that in mind if you plan to wear the shoe all day and stand in them all day. All right, so who should buy the On CloudPulse Next? Number one, if you're a fan of On shoes and you've wanted a shoe that has a little bit more structure than the On Cloud 6, for daily wear, walking, and travel, the On CloudPulse Next can be a pretty good option to look into. Number two, if you have a wider foot with a lower volume forefoot, this model should fit your foot like a glove. I could see it feeling very comfortable for your needs. And then number three, if you like a very lightweight shoe for HIIT, for general strength training, for some classes here and there, this can also be a good option. Now, who should pass on this shoe? Number one, if you have exceptionally flat feet, you'll likely want to pass on this shoe. The arch can feel a little bit aggressive in this model. And then number two, if you're somebody who is doing a lot of turf work, outdoor training, or getting heavier with your workouts, and you're looking into On shoes, this model will fall short in my opinion. Go with the CloudPulse Pro or the CloudPulse. They'll give you more structure and stability and grip in those verticals. All right, so when it comes to the sizing and fit of the CloudPulse Next, I would say size this shoe similar to your other On shoes or your shoes from Nike, Adidas, Reebok. They should fit relatively true to size with sizing. The length runs true and their width is what I would describe as being like a medium to slightly wider foot width. I have an E to double E foot width and a normal instep, normal arch, and they fit decently well. Now I will say the upper volume up here in the forefoot where this TPU overlay is, it can feel a bit aggressive when breaking them in. Also, this tongue can have a little bit of rub. So to mitigate that, what I would suggest doing is getting a thinner pair of workout socks, either an ankle crew or a crew sock, and you should fit a little bit better in this shoe as you break them in and mitigate that friction. You'll thank me later, trust me. And then after about a week or two of breaking them in, those should be non-issues because this mesh should break in a little bit more and that tongue should get a little bit more malleable with more wear. So when it comes to the weight heel toe drop and insole in the CloudPulse Next, for my size 10 shoe here, we have a weight of 10.30 ounces. The heel to toe drop of this shoe sits at 8 millimeters, and this model does not have a removable insole, which is also why I recommend being very cautious with the upper volume in this shoe. Because you can't take this out, if you have separate orthotics, this shoe might feel a little bit too low volume for you, even if you get that insole out. And again, because it is held in with an adhesive, I always say heed caution there, because if you pull this insole out, this goes for any insole that has adhesive, it can be really tough to get that to lay true again and stay secure and flush with the shoe. So just keep that in mind before you buy. All right, so now let's break down the construction of the CloudPulse Next. Up here on the forefoot, we have an extended outsole lip that comes over the toe. Then we have a synthetic overlay that covers the toe box as well. This gives the shoe a little bit more structure and protection for training, but again, it can feel a little bit low here on that pinky side of the shoe if you're maxing out the upper. You then have a mesh upper that runs from the forefoot into the midfoot, and then you have a mesh padded boot back here with additional textile overlays. You have an external heel tab back here on the back, and then you have a low TPU layer here around the boot as well for additional security. And then looking at the midfoot of the shoe, you have 5 core eyelets that go up with the 6 back here for lace lock. The tongue in the shoe does have a gusset, and it is this wider mesh, so it doesn't really slide a ton, and there's also an additional loop here for security. Looking at the midsole of the shoe, you have the CloudTech midsole that runs throughout with that Helion foam. Again, it's more of like a softer to medium density midsole, which is why I also recommend not going crazy heavy in the shoe. You will have less stability compared to the Helion foam using the CloudPulse and the CloudPulse Pro, which are this shoe's bigger brothers designed for classes and strength work. Looking at the outsole of this shoe, you have rubber tread up here on the forefoot and back here in the heel. You have a lot of exposed foam in this shoe, which can be both a good and bad thing, helps you save weight, but it can come at the cost of durability on certain surfaces. For daily wear, the shoe should be fine, but again, for outdoor training on concrete, be very conscious of the foam in the shoe. I don't want you to tear it up too quick. And then once again, the insole in this shoe is not removable, so you'll want to keep that in mind if you have custom orthotics or high volume feet or a higher instep. If you have additional construction questions, drop a comment down below. All right, guys, that wraps up this review of the On CloudPulse Next. Is this gonna be a pickup for everybody? No, but I can see it working really well for a certain type of audience, and that audience being that generalist who loves On shoes, that wants a lightweight model for some casual wear, travel, short runs, and some lifting. If you have additional questions on this shoe, drop a comment down below or reach out to me personally, whichever you prefer. And as always, y'all, drop a like on the video, drop subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next one.